Welcome back to another exciting trip around the crypto canaverse. In this dynamic episode, we will learn from Rich, the entrepreneurial force behind a suite of groundbreaking companies. From Paisley pioneering AI-driven micropayments to Convex, advancing lattice tech, and Covia AI, a decentralized vector DB protocol, where he's engineering lightning fast AI infrastructure for secure data handling. Rich is a true visionary in the financial tech landscape. But that's not all. We're also sitting down with Matt, the pioneer behind the first of its kind multi-family office offering tailor-made solutions for early crypto investors. Lauren is the director of operations and will give us insights into the art of their bespoke services. To top it off, we'll explore how Syndicately is redefining investment infrastructure, empowering SPVs, and streamlining capital deployment. Get ready for an episode packed with innovation, inspiration, and insider knowledge that you do not want to miss. But before we get started, we're going to go over to Alan to present our Bible verse for today. Hey, Alan, how's it going? Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's
Or
Day.
weekend.
Fathers out there doing great. Hope everyone's having a great time. And today is what 112th episode you mentioned, Crystal. So thank you everyone for supporting us. It's been a long journey, but it's been God's grace and His mercy that's been blessing us. But today's Bible verse actually comes also from a quote that Matt chosen was from a God is light. So, but the Bible verse we tied it in today comes from First John 1:5, and it says, "God is light."
Is it First John or First Matt? Isn't it First Matthew?
You wrote John.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, you sent me.
Oh,
John.
yeah, you are correct. My apology.
All right.
I think it was because I was confusing the two. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. So the Bible verse that we tied in, "God is light," it comes from First John 1:5, and the quote is, "God is light. In Him there is no darkness at all," was chosen because it resonates with our speaker's favorite saying that comes from the Tao Te Ching: "The ultimate truth cannot be fully expressed or named." This verse speaks to the nature of God and being beyond human understanding and moral distinction, much like the Tao described as beyond comprehension. The Tao is considered the natural order of the universe, which is ineffable and beyond direct description, similar to how God's true essence is described as pure and beyond the darkness of human sin. So I wanted to open up to the group for any insights, but ultimately ask Nat, this was your quote of saying. So why do you choose this? Or, is this a quote that you always, wake up in the morning and say, "God is light"? So share with us a little insight on this quote.
Man, under the gun. I wasn't expecting that, but I'll take the bait. Yeah, so Alan, just maybe a quick background on me. I was raised in the evangelical Christian tradition. Spent a very long period of time doing that. Did a lot of theological studies, and kind of along my journey, I got introduced to a lot of Eastern traditions as well, including the Tao Te Ching. And the more I read and kind of meditated on the Tao, the line that stood out to me was the very first line, which you read, which you kind of referenced, which is the Tao, or the way of ultimate righteousness. The Tao that can be followed is not the eternal Tao, and the name that can be named is not the eternal name. And as I kind of meditated on that, a lot of that really resonated with me about what I had come to understand about the very nature of the creative force of the universe that in the West we call God very often. And the takeaway for me was the moment we try to attach human language to explain something that is by its nature superhuman, we've already made it too small. If we say that God is this, or if we say that righteousness is this, we have taken that which is theologically eternal, omnipresent, omnipotent, and we've made it too small. And so that's really becomes the lens through which I try to view not just my relationship with the universe, but it was just kind of the way I live my life. So yeah, thank you for giving me a chance to share my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Do we have any other comments on that?
I like how you said we're trying to put a word to such a big feeling. And it's funny to think about our English language is so limited compared to a lot of other languages out there, especially like love. We have one where, you know, the Hebrew has what, 3 different ones, 4 different ones. And so I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Well, we're trying to put one word, they might put a few, but it still doesn't capture that the actual feeling of it.
I mean, that's right on. I think just to kind of pile on a little bit to that idea, if you look at the ancient Hebrew, if you look at what the Hebrews, how the Hebrews described Yahweh God, it was always God by an adjective, the Redeemer God, the Deliverer God, the Almighty God, the God of justice, the God of love, the God of mercy, and so the ancient Hebrews had dozens and probably scores of different words that they would names that they would attribute to Yahweh God or Jehovah God because trying to attach
He's
human
about to create a
language.
bunch of stuff. He was
Oops.
asking if you can.
Mark Gaton
Mark,
here
can you
somewhere.
please, Mark, can
Oh.
you please mute yourself?
Sorry.
Thank you.
But just kind of realizing that God is just is really defined by analogy, that which we can try to understand by analogy, but if we say that it is that, it's too small.
Any other comments?
Thank
No?
you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. We appreciate that. You know, we are so blessed. We have now in the last 2 weeks reached 15,000 views, and we've had 80 strategic signups for our events. And we just want to say thank you to God and everyone that has helped make that possible. And the Crypto Canaverse show is putting on a international pitch contest for females building their own projects in blockchain related companies. It's going to be kicking off in February. If you'd like to be a judge or sponsor women founders, please contact me, Crystal Wampler or Alan Lau on LinkedIn or email info@cryptocanaverse.com. Now, I'd like to welcome our guest co-host, Jake Claver. How's it going, Jake?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me, Crystal.
Thank you so much for being here. You know, Jake is a renowned business leader, consultant, and performance expert specializing in integrating cutting-edge Web3 technologies to foster wealth growth and business innovation. With a decade of consulting experience, Jake has empowered hundreds of ambitious, growth-oriented professionals and businesses to achieve unprecedented success. He is the CEO of Syndicately and the founder of Digital Ascension Group. A pivotal figure in fintech consulting, Jake brings a wealth of knowledge and actionable insights to every engagement. Jake, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. What did I miss here? Did I miss?
That was a fantastic intro. Thank you so much.
You're
great bio.
most welcome. Awesome. You know, what is the Digital Ascension Group?
So we look to be a leader in really the integration of Web3 technology into the space across a wide variety of things. So we have a smaller family office than Matt and Lauren here that we manage and work with clients in, providing, you know, similar scope of services, financial advisory, CFO, accounting, funds and foundations, custody, all those things. And then adjacent to that, we have other investments in fintech companies that are disrupting the space. So one of those is Syndicately, as you mentioned. There's a gap in the market that I've seen for, I wouldn't say smaller raises, but stuff that aren't funds that aren't, you know, 20, 50, $100 million. SPVs have become the vehicle of choice for that. And so we acquired a company last year called Syndicately that does end-to-end fund administration for SPVs. We run Reg D funds, 506B and 506C. We've tried to, well, I feel like we have executed on streamlining that process via APIs to be able to spin those things up very quickly and then allow people to just focus on raising capital instead of all the administrative tasks that go along with that. And then adjacent to that, we have a company that does the tokenization of those SPVs, where we tokenize those in a Core app, where we have smart contracts that allow for, systems that deal with the compliance so that you don't have to worry about those concerns. And we partner with other broker dealers and people in the space like Oasis Pro Markets to be able to provide primary and secondary markets for broker dealers that have, just as an example, Forge or Hive or Link2 are some of the other players that we know in the space that we're currently engaged with, having discussions about, building these primary markets and providing liquidity to their marketplaces. So it's obviously
Wow.
a big problem in private investment. You have extended periods of time where you're illiquid. There really aren't very many solutions out there that exist for that. So it's one of the spaces that we're looking to disrupt. And, like I said, we make strategic investments in other startups that we feel are tokenizing real world assets or disrupting spaces with Web3 technology.
That's an impressive outline. I have no idea. Do you sleep?
Not a lot.
I bet not. Let's open up the floor for questions. Do we have questions for Jake?
I mean, I'll have a question. Have you seen any kind of any change in the sizing of the deals that are going through that you're kind of helping people with the raises? I mean, it feels like that we are at the beginning of a bull cycle here. Obviously, we've been chopping along for a long time, and I know there's been a lot of consolidation and token price for a long time. But are you seeing deals? How are you seeing deals kind of change?
Yeah, so we haven't done a whole lot of SAFs. I'll just be transparent. So we came to market a little bit after that trend. ICOs have kind of died off a bit.
Yeah.
We do more on the really fintech platform side of things and reg tech.
Okay.
Our compliance and our legal are proficient with, token offerings and SAFs, warrants and reps that you would get on the backside of those deals. And that's really the way I think that it'll come to market. So in order to do a regulated ICO, you would tokenize the SAFT and then hold that tokenized equity in qualified custody. The person that's developed the underlying blockchain would hopefully be able to integrate that with the custodian, and then you'd be able to exchange the tokenized SAFT for the tokens in that environment. And I think that's where this goes. I think it takes a little while. It's probably another 2 years before that's a legitimized thing. But the SEC, they proposed the custody rule last year in February about atomic settlement and holding assets in qualified custody and not rehypothecating them or mitigating the risk of those being outside of that environment. And so as we see the progression of this technology and you have securities that are tokenized, I think BlackRock's moving the ball there with Securitize. I think it'll become more prevalent. But yeah, the size, I've really seen a lot of people sidelined after FTX and everything that happened. There just has been a lot less interest. We've got we're lead on an investor round right now for Crescite. They are a token that is a faith-based token. Actually, probably should make an introduction, Crystal, to you and Eddie. They have inroads into a lot of large universities with the Pope and a few other projects in Africa to be able to be an intermediary currency in those environments to settle trade and transactions. So that's one that I thought was, and they were put together the right way. Like, again, our legal helped them draft their fund docs. So I know that they've done it in the right way. But yeah, I've seen the appetite die off similar to yourself, but I have seen some people. We were just at Consensus last week, and there were definitely more people there having conversations about making investment than I've seen in a while.
What are good introductions for Digital Ascension Group?
Um, I came on here to meet you guys, to be honest with you. We had never had a
Okay.
conversation before. Um, we're not as established as y'all, newer to market. And so I appreciate you guys kind of leading the way that you have. Um, our wealth management accounts were with Standard Custody and Trust. They were
Mhm,
recently
mhm.
acquired by Ripple.
Yeah, they're
So
great.
they're
We like
pivoting
those guys a
away,
lot.
from holding, retail accounts or wealth management accounts there. So they've made introductions to our checks, which is where we'll be migrating our clients along with Anchorage. We have been
Mhm,
currently in conversations with them.
mhm.
So, yeah, I'd just love to share, anything that we can that you guys would feel would be appropriate. Nothing comes to mind in particular. We trudging along, I'm sure similar to yourself, you're kind of blazing a trail. So, David Martin, is who we brought on for compliance.
My
He's,
question, Jake,
yeah,
was how are you staying SEC compliant? How are
Yeah.
you guys handling that now?
Yeah, so we've brought him on. We had a managed account there at Standard Custody, and so they were dealing with a lot of the compliance, but we've brought that in house now with him, through the fractional. He runs compliers, and so it's outsourced, but we've brought him on board to be able to make sure that we're doing everything above board and
Nice.
are in line with everything that we're providing our clients.
Yeah, sorry I missed you down in Austin. I was down there as well. But yeah, maybe we could pair up and have like one-on-one conversation at some point and kind of dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you guys? Is there anything in particular that y'all are looking for?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely an unusual family office. We evolved out of the estate planning legal world, and
Mhm.
it's we just kind of accidentally became a family office along the way.
Yeah.
Most family offices that, in fact, frankly, every family office that I'm aware of either started as a mega wealthy family, which I wish I could say that we are, and they kind of spin up their own thing, or they start out of a really successful financial services organization, and that just kind of it creates its own gravitational pull and kind of makes a family office. Ours, uh, I truly have never heard of another family office that formed the way we formed. Um, my background, as I mentioned at the top, is complex substantive estate planning. That's, I've been doing that for now 25 years. And my co-founder, Jonathan Mintz, and I formed first our law firm, which we're in the process of winding down because the law firm gave rise to Bespoke.
Mhm.
But in the law firm, we took on a client who had $150 million worth of wealth, the vast majority of which was Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And this was November of 2017. And at the time, I don't think either Jonathan or I had even heard the word Bitcoin. I mean, we were just completely had no point of reference on it. But our background, we have done estate planning of that magnitude for years and years and years. So the numbers didn't scare us. We knew the strategies, we knew the jurisdictions, we knew how to do that, but we didn't know anything about Bitcoin. But I was really interested in what it is. And so sat down and met with these folks. And going into the conversation, I was thinking, I'm interested, but I'm not sure I want to touch it because it kind of seems like it's a bit of a live wire, especially in 2017.
Yeah.
Because again, looking back now, it was in the middle of the block size wars, the Bitcoin gold hard fork, Bitcoin cash hard fork, all that stuff. There's so much acrimony in the space. And, they were still kind of dealing with the fallout of Mt. Gox in 2014. They were dealing with some of the fallout of Silk Road. And so there's all kinds of hair on planning for Bitcoin. But it struck us that the answer could not be that nobody's going to touch this asset just because it's complicated. So we background checked the folks that we were looking at working with. We started to develop an understanding about Bitcoin. And then we were able to do a $150 million estate plan for US people with Bitcoin using complex structures through Wyoming, Alaska, the Cook Islands, Nevis, and funding it all with Bitcoin. We were working with first BitGo and then ultimately with Anchorage as our US custodian. And then the clients just liked what we were doing so much. They said, "Hey, will you manage our real estate, actively manage our real estate for us?" Okay. "Will you manage the bill payment and invoice processing for the $20 million build that we're doing?" Okay. "Will you help us structure multi-sig on our Bitcoin?" "Yeah, that's fine." "Will you help me blah, blah, blah?" And the list kind of keeps expanding, expanding, expanding. And so before we knew it, we had become a family office. We created Bespoke first to serve as the real estate manager for their real estate. Truly just tailor-made. That's why we named it Bespoke. And then just through organically expanding, saying yes every time the client asked for something, figuring out how to charge for that in a reasonable way. Jonathan's background and my background is also in doing a lot of substantive legal education and professional education presentations. So we created a series of content around how do you do estate planning with Bitcoin? What is crypto? How does it work? What are the tax consequences? How do you custody it? How do you wrap that into some type of tax optimized or asset protected long-term estate planning strategy? And the market gobbled that up. And so more than teaching those other attorneys and other professionals, it turned out it was just a great marketing thing for us, because then we'd get a client referral, say, "Hey, I hear you guys know how to do estate planning for crypto. I happen to have, fill in the blank, high nine figures worth of Bitcoin or Ether, pre-miners or token launchers on a new L1 protocol or whatever." And so we just kind of become those guys. And we got to a point of critical mass in 2022, I want to say, that we said, with the help of some securities counsel, they said, regulation's not here yet, but it's coming. And for you to do what you're doing, if you're in the TradFi space, you'd be providing regulated services without a registration. And so either pare back your services, which that's never interesting to me, or restructure, get registered, and file your ADV and go on down the road. And so that's what we did. So Lauren can maybe correct my timeline if I'm misstating this, but I think at the end of 2022, we restructured, formed an RIA, got that registered with the SEC in January of 2023. And then it's just been kind of Katie bar the door, because we don't sell products. We're advisory, we're strategic. And hopefully, if time permits, I can kind of talk about the thesis and how we view wealth and how that informs the services we provide in the family office space. But we didn't come in as asset managers. We didn't come in as token launchers or crypto OGs. We just kind of were grafted into the Abrahamic root of crypto kind of early on, and we've been growing our branches ever since.
Oh, that's a great background. So for me, I had a liquidity event in crypto in 20 and 21. And so with that, I went to school for finance, and never really used it up until what I do now. And I'd stayed out of the market, so I had a sizable amount of capital on the sideline, saving for a home for my wife and I, which we still haven't moved, and she still gives me hell about. But I put that in just regular equities. When the market fell in 2020, rebounded, rode that up with Facebook, Amazon, Tesla, Google.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know if it was going to be a dead cat bounce or not. And so I looked at de-risk and was looking at precious metals, and was watching a video between Peter Schiff and a Bitcoin guy. I don't even remember the Bitcoin guy's name. And I was like, oh, this is why everybody was on this train in 2017. My brother had turned I think he put $5,000 in the market, and it had gone to 200,000, and he didn't sell and went back down to nothing, and I was like, tulip bubble, I was right, how everybody is. And so anyway, I diversified with the gains I made in the stock market into 10 different positions in crypto. And I got in I don't think I'm a whole lot smarter than anybody else. I just got in at the right time, and rode those up, and was smart enough to have good people around me that told me to cash out. So I wish I would have sold more. Anyway, I was then in a position where I had tax implications and other things going on in my life that I didn't know how to handle. And so I started reaching out to people in mastermind communities that I was a part of, and they directed me toward a couple different CPAs and estate planners, a lot of which I work with today to provide, the services for our clients. And people have just been nice enough to continue to make introductions for me over time. And so similar to yourself, just kind of piece it together as you go, because it's not anything, there's not regulation, but you want to make sure that you're upholding the standards that you would have in TradFi for people. A lot of what I built out has been selfish. I wanted custody for my assets, right? Because my wife has no clue. If I were to pass away, doesn't know how to get into Ledger, use it, send it to an exchange, sell it, do any of it. And so that's when I reached out to Standard Custody, and they put together that program for us. And I started talking about this similar to yourself, just in forums on Twitter. And with that, I've got a fairly large audience there at this point. We do probably a lot more proactive work than you guys do. So people that anticipate having a very significant liquidity event within this next bull cycle, we have a lot of conversations with them, making sure that they establish structures now previous to appreciation, so that they can mitigate the tax implications if they were to exit.
That's precisely the game. I mean, and I'm literally this morning, I've been restructuring some of my own legal structures. Because philosophically, again, because we come at this from an estate planning background, we believe that really fundamentally what you own is not nearly as important as how you own it, and secondarily where it is owned and where it is custodied. And what that means to us is that you're talking about like pre-liquidity planning, and that's a big part of it. We see estate planning as not just necessarily mitigating for tax, although that's a huge part of it, but it's really about helping people structure their relationship with their wealth for the greatest level of impact, whatever that means to them. And whether that is the ability to enjoy that in very private ways so that their name does not appear in chain of title to the beautiful home that they just built on a mountaintop somewhere, or whether that is limiting access to creditors in the event of a potential lawsuit, or preserving inheritance long-term to protect from beneficiaries who are not yet mature enough to understand how to manage the wealth that will someday fall into their hands. And often, how do you make the world a better place through this wealth? We're fortunate enough to work with some of the wealthiest people in the world. I mean, these are people with hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of wealth. They're well past escape velocity, and they know it. And because the bulk of our clients, at least to this point, built their wealth either early in Bitcoin or serial successes in crypto or whatever, by definition, that wealth is new. I mean, it's 15 years old or at the most. So they've had this massive exit of a sort, but they don't know what to do with that amount of wealth, and they don't want it for themselves, especially Bitcoiners. They didn't, very often Bitcoiners didn't get into Bitcoin for the growth. They got into it ideologically, and it's because they see the world a certain way. And that usually will resonate through philanthropy, whether it's faith-based or social causes or geographic isolated causes. So we help people think through what are the right structures, whether they're dynasty trusts, non-grantor trusts, completed gift, incomplete. Obviously, everybody needs a revocable trust as a foundation upon which the rest of the plan is built, but there may be charitable structures. And then, what are the right jurisdictions? Because if you're in Colorado, like we are, Colorado trust law is really not that great. But Nevada is good. South Dakota is good. Wyoming is good. Cook Islands is even better. Nevis is a great LLC statute jurisdiction. And so then we think about, okay, what are the right structures? What are the right jurisdictions to govern those structures? And then where around the world are qualified custodians that can provide true qualified custodian off-balance sheet custody of your crypto assets, just like your fiat assets. So whether that's Anchorage here in the US or whether that's some of our partners overseas, we really think that you've got to think about the actual portfolio of assets, whether it's crypto or fiat assets or some mix. You have to think about the ownership structure, because you can have the best portfolio performance in the world, you can have the best investment advisors in the world, but if you have not hedged that downside risk through tax erosion and loss to a creditor or squandering by an unprepared beneficiary, then your beta and alpha aren't going to outrun that. Hedged that and then downside risk through tax getting some feedback off of Austin. And I guess kind of the last thing I'll say about our methodology or our mindset is that we focus on how to own, where to own, what to own then, and then the recursive function is why. You know, what's it all about? Because our clients, we're fortunate in that our clients aren't just looking for building more and more and more wealth. They've kind of done that. And now they're looking for an expression of meaning, an expression of their purpose and values. And then how can that carry forward into the next generation? And that, again, it's a recursive function, because that informs the types of structures, the how to own. It informs the where to own. It informs the what to own. And so it's this iterative cycle that keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. And so that really becomes the value proposition for Bespoke as a family office for these ultra affluent clients.
Love it.
Can you give us an example of a case study of a client that you've helped and kind of lay it out how you've helped them?
Yeah, I'll try to do that in a way that's, I mean, obviously to preserve privacy and stuff, but
Of course.
we've got one of the clients that I'm pretty active with right now, got into Bitcoin early and hard in 2011. And they bought thousands of Bitcoins because they just thought that it was a sound form of monetary policy, and they just held on to it. They didn't have any liquidity events. They just held it. Well, when you have thousands of Bitcoins in today's market, that's hundreds of millions of dollars. These clients are also accomplished professionals in their own right. These aren't crypto bros. These aren't like radical Bitcoin toxic people. You know, they're not like toxic maxis. They're Bitcoiners, but they're professionals. They've got their own practices, and they have high income just as a result of their work that has nothing to do with Bitcoin or crypto. They also live in a jurisdiction that has a fairly high income tax, as well as a state level estate tax. They also have a young family. They also have a very strong faith perspective. And they're also in a very tight-knit family who has no idea how much wealth they have. And so we met these folks through a podcast that I had done, and they'd heard that and reached out and wanted to learn more. And now we're working with them over the course of the last 6-ish months, maybe a little bit longer than 6 months now. We helped them establish an irrevocable grantor dynasty trust using Nevada law as its jurisdiction, because you've got a fairly long rule against perpetual trusts. So the trust in Nevada can last for 365 years, which is probably long enough. We created a donor advised fund for them that Bespoke Advisory, our RIA, manages for them. It is funded with and is still holding long Bitcoin. They made a $15 million gift in kind of Bitcoin last year. That Bitcoin is now worth about 24 million sitting in the DAF, and we're managing that for them. Their philanthropic objectives is to promote the growth and expansion of their church, and these folks are Orthodox Christians, and so it's a very tight-knit kind of cultural community, and there's like maybe 20,000 adherents in the United States. So kind of everybody knows every family in there. And these people, because of their faith perspective, because of their privacy, and because of their humility, they don't want to be associated with the gift at all. So they've had us be their direct intermediary to the diocese, working with the bishops and the priests of the diocese to then facilitate the giving of $7 million to each of these two dioceses. And because they said, you know what, if this ever comes back to us, it's going to be embarrassing. It's going to look like we're trying to be grandiose in our giving, and they're giving out of humility and out of obedience as they perceive it. So we're helping them maintain 100% anonymity. And if we do our job right, nobody in the church, and including the families of my clients, will never know where these gifts came from. But we're also helping the diocese develop operational best practices, because the diocese have never had this much money before. And so helping the churches have proper audit standards and controls and dual sign-offs and all this kind of stuff to be able to manage the gifts, and so the churches can be good stewards of these gifts, is a big part of what our clients want to achieve. We're also in the process of helping them design a couple of health and education exclusion trusts. They have some older family members who have kind of ongoing chronic medical needs. And, we are using up the bulk of their estate tax exemption using a dynasty trust. We're going to follow that with a sale transaction later on, either later this year or next. And so they're out of exclusion, but they want to fund health and education expenses. So we're helping them create a family health and education endowment that will also fund back to the donor advised fund for the family's charity. There's kind of sitting at the top of the stack is a Nevis series limited liability company that is funded with both private investment vehicles as well as Bitcoin, and then some public equities as well. And so the Series LLC is kind of sitting as the family's management company, and then sleeves of the limited liability company get gifted to the various trusts inside this structure. And so it's a beautiful, elegant way to design for these clients. But we're using Nevada for strong asset protection, as well as a long rule against perpetual trusts. And kind of the final icing on the cake for Nevada for us was that it's got an unlicensed private family trust company statute. So down the road, if the clients have multiple irrevocable trusts that are running their family wealth, we can just put right on top of the stack a family-owned, family-controlled private family trust company that is not subject to banking regulator oversight, but is owned by the family. And then it becomes, I like to describe that like as the family's fiduciary central nervous system of managing the family assets. And then Bespoke is helping design all of that stuff, oversee the implementation through a project management function, and then overseeing and actively helping facilitate the ongoing operations of that. So this is one of our most active families right now. And we're literally in daily communication with these clients. They don't live here in Colorado, but we'll fly to them to meet with them. So it's really kind of interesting to be able to serve people like this. And I was talking with Jonathan earlier this week. If you had told me 5 years ago that this is what I would be doing, I'd say that you're crazy. It's like, this is nuts. 5 years ago, we had been exposed to Bitcoin and we were doing a few things here and there, but we were still just kind of focusing on growing the law practice. Now, by the end of July, we will no longer even have a law practice, period. We're having to walk away from that because there's so much momentum in Bespoke as the family office that's, you got to go all in. When you're sitting pocket cowboys, you got to go all in.
I love it,
Well,
man.
that's a great great overview, and I see so many layers of complexity added into what you guys do. Is this what differentiates you from other people doing what you do, or is there anybody doing what you guys are doing?
Not that I'm aware of that do it from our perspective. There are other people in the family office space that have some facility with crypto, but most of them are people who made a significant bit of wealth in crypto, and now they're expanding into broader services. I think this is what Jake does with Digital Ascension. There are some there are some kind of boutique RIAs that call themselves family offices that are now starting to dabble in some crypto placements, but most of them are selling special purpose vehicles or exposure to funds or whatever, primarily to be kind of crypto native to the fiat wealthy who are looking to get an allocation into crypto. Our clients are the crypto ultra wealthy, who they already made their wealth in crypto. And if anything, they're wanting to get into investments that are non-correlated to crypto, and that are an expression of their worldview. So, I mean, Bitcoiners, again, early ETH pre-miners, a lot of L1 founders, they have a certain worldview. They have a perspective on how the world of finance ought to work. And that just informs every decision that they make. And so when they then want to express a worldview through public markets or through other private vehicles or into other countries in ways that are not correlated to the movement of the crypto markets, that's where we do a lot of our research. And that's where we add a lot of value. I'm not aware of any other family office out there who really begins with a deep expertise in structuring and jurisdictional arbitrage, as we call it, as well as providing the ability to let a U.S. person get direct access to things like Swiss banking, Liechtenstein custody, harder currencies like assets denominated in the Swiss franc instead of the U.S. dollar, facilitating secondary passports and residency options for clients. Our clients are not all U.S. based, but most of them are U.S. based. And a lot of them have expressed some significant concern about the downward trend of the value of the U.S. dollar. Not so much as it's going to lose its world reserve currency stature, but just erosion of the value of the dollar. Part of it's informed by inflation, and I think a significant part of it was exacerbated by the great money print during COVID. But I think they just see continued erosion of the value of the dollar. We see BRICS nations now starting to denominate trade in non-dollarized terms. So, our clients are somewhat concerned if all of their wealth is denominated in the US dollar, and so they want to hedge into things like the Singapore dollar or the Norwegian krona or the Swiss franc, as I mentioned. And they want to get access to qualified custodians that are beyond the reach of U.S. regulators. I think it feels like the tide is beginning to turn a bit around the regulatory environment here in the United States, but not that long ago, those of us who've been in crypto for more than a hot minute were concerned that a lot of these qualified custodians would be wound down. We're huge fans of Anchorage, and we do a lot of business with those guys. I really cannot say enough good things about them. The biggest challenge I think that Anchorage has is that they're subject to regulation inside the United States. They do everything. Anchorage does everything right, but a regulator could change the game on them, just depending on legislative or even just regulatory pressures. So a lot of our clients say, I'd kind of like to have a toe in the Bahamas, okay? Or I'd like to have a toe in Switzerland or in Liechtenstein or in Canada or in Singapore. Just so, just like you shouldn't have all of your assets necessarily in one investment vehicle, you probably should not have all of your investments in one legal structure. We believe you shouldn't have all of your investments in one jurisdiction.
Thank you. Thank you so much for explaining that. Amanda, you have a question.
I have a few questions, but you had such a good flow going. I was like, I'll put my hand back down. You're a great speaker. I'm really enjoying listening to you. You talk with passion.
Thank you.
Some of the things I was curious about is I know other people would be curious. So how do you protect your clients who want privacy? How are you making them disappear?
Yeah, these are great questions. There's a couple of different layers to answer that, I think. We have a team who is really good at helping wipe digital footprints, so that, if people have been a little bit oversharing in social media channels, we can kind of help reduce the footprint there. But more specifically, a lot of what our clients are looking at is how can they privately enjoy their wealth. That usually means some type of complex structure, to be honest with you. the very first example that the very first use case for Bespoke was for this ultra affluent Bitcoiner who's well known in the space. And they said, you know, I've got some luxury real estate, and when the market's frothy, I want other hard assets, so I buy real estate. Well, the problem with real estate is there's a chain of title that anybody can search. These are public records, and so they said, is there any way I can keep my name out of the chain of title? And so that's what got us thinking, well, yeah, we've got these, we created 2 irrevocable trusts. We used Wyoming for this particular structure. We used 2 Wyoming irrevocable trusts. Within those Wyoming irrevocable trusts, our client can't be the trustee, but our client can make all the investment decisions. So the client could be the investment trust advisor, directing all the investments inside the trust. Well, the first thing that client did was say, okay, well, trusts, create a limited liability company. So now there's an LLC, Wyoming Close LLC, that's owned by these 2 irrevocable trusts. Okay, well, we then bifurcated the management structure. So we gave our client the investment management role there. And then we said, well, if we're going to buy real estate, the manager of the LLC is going to be the one who appears in chain of title. Well, it can't be you if you want the privacy. So we said, well, why don't we create Bespoke? And Bespoke can be a non-member, or so not like a non-equity owner, but just a manager, like a third-party independent manager of your LLC. And then we will be the general manager of your LLC. So when it's time to go to property closings, it's us that appears in the chain of title as a fiduciary underneath this stack. So when, over time, as the clients have kind of harvested some gains off of the market in Bitcoin and bought some real estate, it would be bought through this type of structure. And so that was really, it has been really effective in insulating the client's individual name from the chain of title on the real estate. So it's kind of the first step to preventing curiosity seekers from being able to just find where Crystal Wampler just bought this house on the Malibu Palisades, and I'm just going to wait out there and be a predator and be kind of creeper. So there's one step. And the other thing that we've kind of recently learned is that the deep search credit reporting agencies can then have access to things like your phone bills or your other accounts that are associated with a piece of real estate, and they can then cross-index that to find out that Crystal may have owned this in a so Crystal's name doesn't appear in the chain of title, but if Crystal's cell phone bill or internet service bill is at that address associated with this piece of real estate, and then they connect the dots and say, oh, wait, it was also associated with this other piece of real estate associated with the same entity, then a client ends up getting doxxed. And so then a lot of what we've now expanded to is not only doing the elaborate ownership structure, but then further filtering for privacy to keep their name out of these deeper credit reporting agencies.
Thank you, Matt. We are going to speed up a little bit and move on to a few more things. Amanda, if you have other questions, please reach out to Matt via email or drop them in the box. I appreciate you asking them, but we are slowly running out of time and we need to stay on schedule here. So before we move on, I would like to, introduce Lauren. Lauren, thank you so much for being here. You are the director, and you also do a lot of the compliance stuff. You are a woman of many hats, and I want to actually congratulate you for being nominated as Executive of the Year Award by Lido. And just so you all know, Lido Advisory is a private wealth management company, and they manage a little bit about 20 billion of assets under management. So congratulations, Lauren. With that being said, I would like to ask both Matt and Lauren, what is one characteristic trait that you love about each other that really helps propel the business forward? Keep it to about 30 seconds if possible.
First.
Matt, you first.
I guess I'll say my piece because I've got to duck out pretty soon, but beyond tremendously honored to have my oldest daughter running operations for my company. She's aside from the fact that I love her and she is the woman who made me a dad, She is just an amazingly talented person. She works extremely hard. I think she has the best of my creativity, um, and the best of her mom's sense of organization skills. And it's been wonderful to watch her really grow as a leader in our organization. I could not be happier than to be able to work with her every day.
That's special. Lauren?
I share the same sentiment. I love working with Dad. It's been the best 4 years ever. Who knew that it would take that long or would last that long? But it's been awesome. And every day I'm just excited to come to work and get to spend time with him. But he actually already alluded to the one that I value the most is his creativity. So Dad is always creative in his solutions and his problem solving. And he has this absolute zest for learning that he's instilled in me and in our family. And he does it not only at work, and with our clients and their structuring and their priorities in their lives, but also at home in his own projects and in our family, and just keeping everything fun and creative and outside of the box all the time. And I so value that.
Thank you.
That's amazing. I love this, especially Father's Day coming up. That's perfect. Matt, you couldn't ask for a better interview, right?
100%. Absolutely.
Lauren, I'm curious, what is the most challenging thing for, in your role as director of operations?
Yeah, Matt also kind of alluded to that earlier, in that our clients will just say, hey, can Bespoke help with that? We say, yeah, sure. We'll figure that out. And so it makes operations kind of dynamic all the time. I mean, it's ever evolving, it's ever changing, and we have to stay agile and open-minded and creative kind of on any opportunity the client presents us. We are truly bespoke in that whenever a client says, hey, can you help? We say, we'll figure it out. So it makes me have to be always looking at cutting edge technology, always looking at how we can adapt our systems as we're constantly changing course. And so I find that to be the most challenging, but also the most interesting. Every day is different, and every day is, again, a challenge for me to figure out what happens next.
That's amazing. I was going to ask you to elaborate on the services that Bespoke offers, but it seems like if they have a request, your client has a request, you guys figure out how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think the other piece to expand on that a little bit is we have to be willing and organized enough to jump back into a project. So our clients are building stuff, their priorities are constantly changing, their lives are constantly changing, their attention is constantly changing. And our team has to be willing to understand that deadlines are always changing, priorities are always changing, and whatever our priority is, it doesn't matter. Whatever the client needs, that's where we're jumping back in. And it could be, 6 months before a client's ready to finalize some project, or it could be 2 years. And no matter what, we have to be ready to jump back in right where we left off, not saying, oh yeah, why were we talking about this? And where did we leave off? No, it's our job to know exactly where we left off. So when the client says, where did we leave this off? We can tell them and we can jump right back in right where we started, or say, hey, we learned some new information. We'd like to share that with you, and try and bring things to the forefront. But it only becomes important to the client when it becomes important to the client. And we have to be able to do that as well.
That's amazing. And I just want to say that I love you guys because you're humble, genuine, easy to talk to, supportive, just amazing human beings. So thank you both so much for being here today. With that, I want to hop over to, Rich, we have a question. Go ahead, Rich. I was going to introduce you. It's perfect timing.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, since it's a family show, I'm wondering, Kylan, relationship?
Ours?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know if you broke up or whatever, but I'm eldest daughter.
Is Kylan related to you guys?
Oh, Kylan, no.
Don't know a Kylan.
I don't know a Kylan.
It's interesting because there's a Kylan McClintock, and he had a company in college called Bespoke, and it was a tailor company.
I'll be darned. How funny is that? What a small serendipitous world.
Yeah. He was
no relation that I'm aware of.
Yeah, he was importing tailor work from overseas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Cool.
I wondered if you guys were related even.
No,
Never
never
met
heard the
anyone.
name, but that's
I get a lot
funny.
of Jessica McClintock, but there's no relation there either.
Yeah,
That is amazing. Well, Rich, could you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell our
sure.
viewers what you're working on?
Sure. So I'm Rich Copshow. I've been in the entrepreneur space for a very long time. I am in Colorado, so I spent a lot of time at CU Boulder in the maybe the 2013 to about 20, just before the pandemic, mentoring college students in entrepreneurship, which is where I met Kylan, but he was actually with School of Mines at the time. And you all look pretty close, so
I might have
I
a long
wondered if
lost
you guys were
brother
actually
somewhere.
related. My background is entrepreneurship, and right now I'm the CMO of a new L1. It's actually a full stack solution, and it is lattice technology. It's a new category of DLT. So we know that DLT has underneath it blockchains as one kind of a category, DAGs as another, and now lattice, which is a brand new category in DLT. And the difference between those is a blockchain requires the hash of the previous block to be stored, and therefore creating a chain. A DAG will do one or more hashes, and a lattice does not require you to chain the hash. It's handled in a different manner through Merkle tree. And so that makes lattice very, very fast. And so as a CMO of Convex Foundation, we're working on a lot of different things that are going to go on top of this. It's not launched yet. It's launching in about a month and a half. And one of the things I'm building on top of that is, because it's very, very fast, payments. So international payment structure. And we're also building on top of that Covia, which is a open standard protocol for the AI space. So all these things that I'm working on are pretty well connected. So it's being pretty efficient with your time when you're working on things that use the same kind of technologies. And with Covia, the idea is, if you think about how the internet started, until you actually had standards like IP, IPFS, or TCP IP, you didn't really have a way to have things work together. And like the IBM PC had plug and play. And once that started happening, then people could build clones of IBM. And so once there's these protocols that are standardized, then things really take off. So in the AI space, we're building that protocol that will allow the interconnectivity of all of the different kinds of things that need to happen, like orchestration in the enterprise space. Right? There's a lot of, if you think about decentralizing AI, why would you do that? Right now, everything's centralized and it goes really, really fast. However, if you're a big multinational, you happen to have data in Tokyo and you have data in London and data in New York. Well, if you can get it all in one data lake, then you can process it. But it's really unlikely that those things happen with ease. So if you have decentralization, you can pull from all of these different places. So Crystal mentioned the vector database stuff that we're building on top of that. So we have a decentralized vector database that's all part of a file system, the DLFS, which is the data lattice file system. And you can think of data lattice file system as the IPFS meets BitTorrent meets Dropbox, and all of these things working together. And the difference between what we do there is it's file level, not block level. So in the AI space, you need really, really fast, real-time vector databases in order to manage the data streams. So when you have these markets, you also need the ability to pay for things. So Paisley does micropayments because it's very, very cheap to do transactions on this lattice technology, you can then apply micropayments. Whereas you couldn't do that on Ethereum, do a 10-cent transaction with a $400 fee, right? You can do that on our lattice technology. So those are the things I'm working on, and they're all in various stages of funding and various stages of release. So once we release the core technology, the other things will be on top of that. Any questions?
And Rich, I'm sorry, who just spoke? Do we have a question?
That was me. I said, do you have any questions?
Yeah. So you are currently fundraising, and what does that look like?
Well, fundraising is always fundraising. What more can you say? So we're raising for Covia. We're looking at a $4 million raise as a pre-seed. And on Paisley, we're raising $1 million in pre-seed for that as well. And Convex sells tokens. It won't really take big VC money because it's an open source tool that the founder really wants to be a public good and not to be controlled by big VCs like some of the other chains have sacrificed their integrity to.
Yeah, that's actually very common. So I appreciate you not sacrificing your integrity and the founder not sacrificing their integrity. So you're doing a token launch, and have you guys launched the token yet?
No, the Lattice isn't launched yet. It'll go into public proto-net. It's been in testnet for about 1.5 years and fully vetted, but we'll bring it into proto-net in about 6 weeks.
Nice. Do you plan on giving investors discounted tokens?
Probably not.
No.
No.
We see that often. I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, that kind of goes against the ethos of what we're trying to build, right?
Fair enough.
Yeah. What we're building is the inventor is an economist as well as a maths major, and so the release curve is fairly well planned as an economic engine, and we've done everything we can to avoid things like pump and dump tech activity and the ability to do that. Right now, early investors can only buy a limited amount. They can't buy more than $200,000 worth of tokens in any one tranche. If they want more, they have to go a tranche up. So there's like 3-4 tranches before it goes public. And that eliminates the idea of somebody coming and dumping 300 million into the thing and having a deep controlling interest.
That's smart. That's smart. I like that kind of planning. Before we wrap up, can you please
Crystal,
tell
can I ask a
everyone?
question, a really quick question
Absolutely.
to Rich as well?
Sure.
Just
Go ahead.
just a quick intro because I joined a bit late and apologies. I'll probably grab your information afterwards just because I don't want to hold up too much time here. I work at Uphold Inc. and more specifically Uphold Institutional. We're an anything to anything platform for the last 8 to 10 years, 10 years strong, but 8 years we've been known as only a retail shop. We cater to around 10 million retail users around 150 countries. But I also work on the institutional desk. We also have an OTC desk, Uphold Ascent. I mostly work in institutional coverage, but also on the listings teams for Uphold. We are not an exchange, but more so a liquidity aggregator, meaning we're usually not able to support from like the token generation event. But after a few, after some liquidity has went through the rails, like I'm definitely interested more so just because of the fundamentals of what you guys are building. I've always been a big fan of really alterations of blockchain, mostly looking at block DAGs, but really excited what you guys are building. Very, very fascinating. So I would just like to connect with you after. I'm not sure if
Sure.
if we drop emails or if Crystal distributes them afterwards, but just very
Well, my
fast.
email is the same as my name. Just put a @ in the middle and .com at the end.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. I was here when Al Gore invented the internet, so I was able to get my own URL.
There you go. There you go. I love that.
Those are great questions. Thank you guys so much. I just would like to go ahead and wrap up. Rich, you already told everyone where they can get a hold of you at. Lauren, where can our audience reach out to you?
Probably info@bespokegroup.io, or my bespoke email is lauren@bespokegroup.io, and then you can always check out our website, which is bespokegroup.io. It's all matching, makes it pretty easy to find us. We're also on
That
LinkedIn
is pretty
and
easy.
Twitter, or X, or whatever you call it now.
Thank you so much. Rich, is there any other contact information that you would like to give?
Not really. I mean, they can reach me at my email, and it's rich@copshow.com. Happy to be here. Thank you, Crystal, for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate each and every one of you. Very quickly, before we close out, we're going to close in prayer, and then we will see everyone next week.
Before I close in prayer, is there any prayer requests out there that you want me to pray for you guys for this coming week?
Actually, I would like to for you to pray for Clayton's grandmother.
Okay.
And she is going to start chemo on Monday, and it would be fantastic if you could keep her in your prayers.
Okay. I have a prayer for a brother in Christ, Mark Carvajal, down Southern California. He had a severe stroke, so I'm praying for his recovery. So I'll definitely pray for Clayton's grandmother for chemo as well too. So
I actually would like to go ahead and add my mom to the list. She's got some scary health stuff going on that we're all nervous and anxious about, but generally healthy. Just next steps are scary. So
okay.
Yeah, if I could jump in too, I actually have a prayer request as well. So it's Pappy here. Yeah, it's my dad. He's been having some issues with his heart, and he's getting tested in August, and it's not really clear, but his heart's running at about 20%. So we're just just a little bit worried about him, and he's doing good. Everybody's doing good, but obviously there's uncertainty. So yeah, just prayer for health and good outcome and strength.
Absolutely. All right, let's bow our heads and pray. I'll pray for everyone's health. Dear God, thank you so much for another week of Crypto Canaverse, where we have wonderful guest speakers like Lauren, Father Matt, and also our co-host, Jake, that comes on, and everyone that shared about their inspiration, their practice. Thank you, Rich, for to sharing us about this company, what he's doing. But right now, we'd like to uplift not only all the fathers that we're celebrating Father's Day, but most importantly, the people that need your healing hand. Like to uplift Clayton's grandmother as she goes through chemotherapy. We understand that going through chemo at an age like this is sometimes difficult, but we know that your comforting hand and comforting spirit will be around her. I'd like to also pray for my brother in Christ, Mark Carvajal. He just suffered a serious stroke down in Southern California. So I just pray that his VA benefits will be approved quickly, as well as more comforting and healing hands amongst the family during this time. Also like to pray for Lauren's mother as she's going through some health conditions. Just praying that your spirit and your guidance and your strength be among with her and her family. And then last importantly, for Matthew, I think you said your mother or dad has a heart issue. I just pray that with all things that that is happening among our health with our family, most importantly, if we just give it up to you, God, knowing that you're a true healer, you're a restorer, you're an almighty God that can perform miracles and can provide a healing hand to each one of us in our family. I just continue to pray for this group. Thank you so much for bringing all the people to come to our show on a weekly basis, knowing that you have provided and you have put these people in place for us to learn from each other, to inspire each other, encourage each other. It's amazing grace that you have us all get together. So just pray for the weekend. You protect us and keep us safe. In Christ's name, Jesus' name, pray. Amen.